obviously couldn't do it as long as I was a part of that group. And in another case, I thought, this is such a controversial and taboo topic that I would delegitimize, not personally endanger, but take away the legitimacy of another group I was associated with. And I chose to drop out of that one too. And that was painful. Now, these may or may not have been right decisions that I made, but they were decisions which showed me that I was involved here in a topic that is somehow deeply scary or repugnant or worrisome or embarrassing. And that is interesting. And that needs to be probed. And that's why I'm glad we decided to start with this topic. I haven't got it all unpacked. I haven't got it all figured out yet. But that's where you enter. When you see that you've crossed a line somewhere. When all you're doing, and in my case, is the same stuff I've done all my life. I'm just asking questions. I'm just doing research. I'm sitting there for the last 3 years counting pixels on my computer, doing really, really painful, painstaking research on 9/11. I think it's good research, but somehow I've crossed the line. So rather than trying to analyze any further why that line is there, I think Michael's hypothesis is a good one, that somehow we have an implicit, people feel they have an implicit contract with their government. And let me just say one more word about that. This is a weird contract, but it's very old. It goes something like this. It's okay for you to kill. It's fine. But you kill the other. You kill those who are threatening us. Or you kill those who have things that we might want. But you don't kill us. If you're our government, you don't turn around and kill us. And I think this implicit contract isn't just with democracies. Even with kingship and all kinds of things, it's there. It's very old. And I think that's what's a little bit new about 9/11. I mean, the American empire, like other empires, has been killing hundreds of thousands, millions of people for a long time, and I've been denouncing that for a long time. But this is new because we're saying they turned on their own. Now, as John has said, it's really nothing new for elites to kill their own. But there's something so grotesque and direct and public about this that it does seem to represent a new level of taboo. And I think I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Could I just take up a couple of the points that that Graeme made? One thing I'd say is that there is that line, but the line is moving. The line that marks on one side the realm of the permissible and on the other side the realm of the taboo has been moving, I think, quite rapidly. And it's been moving in part because of the energies devoted to research on this issue by many people, including John, who was into this very early, including Graeme, who's done really outstanding serious research on a number of key issues. And one effect of that has been to persuade increasingly large numbers of people with serious expertise that the official account of what happened on 9/11 is quite simply ludicrous. And I'm thinking here in part of an excellent website called Patriots Question 9/11, which simply assembles the names and photographs and brief statements by people in the academy, in government, in the American military, in usually retired intelligence officers, government officers, and so on. People who have come out and chosen to stand up as critics. Now, the websites, Tony just brought the website up. You can see more than 600 engineers and architects. These are people who know about what makes buildings stay up or fall down. And these people have stood up and said, no, what's ludicrous here is not the stand of people like Graeme MacQueen. What's ludicrous here are the arguments that have been advanced in support of an official theory that is, in terms of physics and many other terms, indefensible.
I'd just like to say on that one that whenever anyone says, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," that you're not. This is the automatic term of invalidation. I always find it good to say back to people, well, I do have trouble with the official conspiracy theory. I have trouble, and I really would, perhaps you can assist me here, I can't find one fact of the claimed fact of the official conspiracy theory that is substantiatable in a reliable way. Not one. And then we start from there, and one can walk through all of it, right from, well, I mean, you'd say, well, the planes, we know the planes went into the buildings. We did all see that, but, you know, there's a lot of research being done showing that those videos are not really completely reliable, so we can't. We do know, though, that something went into those buildings and that the buildings were destroyed, but we had an immediate reference to these people that were known to have done it, that they had no remains. It turns out on BBC television they did a documentary that showed that the 5 of the people that were alleged to have done it were still alive, and it's never been answered. The building was blown to such smithereens, which is against the laws of physics, that kind of a residue. And what was left in the way of not smithereens was quickly moved to other sites, sold as sort of garbage iron and cement and so forth to foreign countries like China. And we really aren't able to find any evidence, the more you check it through, any evidence to substantiate the claims. How do they even know these people did it? And since a number of them appear to be still alive, according to the BBC documentary. And so we go from one thing to another. Why, if these were really enemy planes coming, you know, as they said it was, why would it take up to 70 minutes before they did any interference with their flight paths, when it's normally 5 to 10 minutes maximum time? So basically the official conspiracy theory, try to see if you can find one fact that's substantiated all the way down in a reliable way. And that's the beginning problem. The official conspiracy theory is a conspiracy theory that needs to be challenged.
I want to ask in Lethbridge, and do you feel comfortable with this subject? Do you feel this is a worthy subject? Do you feel the aura of taboo around this subject?
Hi.
Yeah.
I just want to say that the topic I think is incredibly important. The only introduction I have to this actually was when I was in Ecuador, and the school there actually showed loose change, which I'm sure you guys at least know about. And that is the only conversation that I had, and that wasn't even in Canada, that was in Ecuador. And this, what you're talking about in the liberal education class about the idea of seeking truth and knowledge, I think is incredibly important and should be present at the university. So I really appreciate you guys talking about this.
John McMurtry, member of the Royal Society of Canada, and many other distinguished recognitions. Your books include Unequal Freedom, and The Cancer Stage of Capitalism. I talked about your most recent work, The Global Market versus the Life Economy. Does this topic of taboos present an opening, John, for you to get into your larger paradigm, your larger interpretation of what 9/11 really signifies in our society?
Well, that's a pretty big question, but let me try. First of all, on the taboo thing, I think that I wrote an article years ago, actually it's almost 20 years ago, that was called The Unspeakable, Understanding the System of Fallacy in the Mass Media. And it was a logic journal, an informal logic of natural language journal. And the referee reports on that were basically, it eventually got published, but the initial referee reports on it were, this should never have been said. This should just not have been discussed. And you wonder, well, why is it? What makes something, and the language I'm going to use is just shift from taboo to the language you use there is unspeakable. What's unspeakable? And my understanding was that what's unspeakable seems to follow a kind of a unifying principle. And the principle is the more it contradicts the order of power of that society, basically the structure of ownership and control over its means of life, the more it contradicts the particular structure of that ultimately regulating social principle of that order, say to turn money into more money in the case of our era, to turn money into more money for private money possessors is the ultimately regulating principle of the money capital society. So anything that contradicts that, now it could be the Communist Party and the Soviet Union, but the one that's actually prevailing is what I call a money sequence of value. And anything that contradicts that is ruled out of attention in any public media or indeed any publication of record. And so you won't see, for example, something that's much older than 9/11. You will not, and I bet you no one here has read that GM and IBM and DuPont were all providing weapons to the Nazi army during the Second World War. After the Americans had declared war on Nazi Germany, they were still providing them with tanks and, of course, the lists actually for the concentration camp in the case of IBM and so forth. That all this went on, and we never. How many people ever heard that story? Well, it's all very well documented, and not only did they do this, but nobody ever heard about it really afterwards, except some few publications. And you can see that if that were to come out, indeed they were paid reparations for their bombed factories in Nazi Germany when they were producing war parts for them. So that's how far it went. Now, why don't we know that? Well, we can see that once a fact like that gets exposed in high school history courses or wherever, then it calls into question the legitimacy, it calls into the question the very nature of the ruling system and what I understand ultimately is a value system. And the more it contradicts that value system, for example, turn money into more money for private money possessors, whether it's through making armaments or betting on derivatives or the future currency or whatever has led to all the trouble we have now, that is never called into question. And you look at all the media, even now as the system collapses, it's not called into question, it's not mentioned as an issue. And so I think the taboo or the unspeakable is in direct proportion to the amount that it contradicts the ultimately regulating value system. Now, what most of all ultimately contradicts the regulating value system and is the ultimate alternative is what I call the life economy. And Tony asked me to say a few words about it. In the life economy, instead of going through money, through life as means to having more money in the hands of money possessors, private money possessors, you have life going through means of life to more life and more flourishing life. And that's what we normally live in accordance with. We eat hopefully nourishing food, we get good sleep, we wear clothes that will keep us warm, we try to avoid allergens, etc., etc. We drink only clean water. And so that's all life through means of life to more life. Now that's the way we really ought to live. That seems to be the sensible way to go. But in fact, every time, although we have no concept of the life economy in current economics, which only thinks of money sequences, neoclassical systems, that the more you have actually life-based systems that are trying to provide means of life to their society and do it not through the money sequence, the private money sequence, but by, say, social ownership of whatever it might be, to provide people with health and education and so forth, you'll notice that they're always the societies that end up being the evil one. And in fact, we don't even know what they're doing in terms of the means of life that they're providing their people. Cuba being a good example with a higher longevity than Americans and so forth, but we know it's a tyranny run by a despot and so forth. And so you